Let me start with saying hello, everybody. It's 16th of November for probably most of you, and already 17th of November for me here in Australia. And here I am, the program about future of human consciousness, direct dialogue with life. You said you really this direct dialogue with life. Believe me, I love it too. And especially recently, I had a series of events, not really strange, but lovely things happening where you can see life as if someone is watching, someone is listening, and you are being given answers, you are being given signs, you are being given resources and information exactly when you need it. To some extent, it feels that all our devices, most of the time we have tablets or mobile phones with us, and you clearly know if you were Googling something, then you will see ads about that topic. But even more, even if you were talking to somebody, not even talking into your phone, but just talking about certain subjects. Say we mentioned the topic of honey with my husband, and next moment I see honey advertising coming up on my mobile screen. So obviously Google is watching and listening, and someone else is watching and listening beyond this material realm and replying to our needs, replying and interacting with us all the time. So I'll start with the usual short introduction for those who might be here for the first time. My name is Oxana Bondarchuk. You can hear by the sound of it. I'm originally Russian, but I've been in Australia for the last 14 years by now. I'm certified Awakened Mind practitioner and trainer. I am Institute for the Awakened Mind online events moderator. You might have seen me before. I have a background in psychology as teacher of psychology, and I also studied transpersonal psychology, which goes beyond your personality, which goes to other realms than material. I sometimes call it spiritual psychology. And in the last 3 years, like most of the psychologists would do, decided to explore some other areas, and I looked into numerology, I looked into systemic family constellations, and I also started to learn astropsychology. So back in ancient history, before I moved to Australia, I worked in the corporate world, holding different positions in finance, marketing, and business training. I do have corporate background as well. Before I continue, I have to make this disclaimer because it's only my understanding of the presented subjects and may not reflect the original teachings of other practitioners. Please feel free not to take anything I say for granted or as the ultimate truth, but just assume some of it might be true and then just take it for exploration and research in your own life. So test the presented ideas, and that's the healthy way to deal with any information these days, because we go through overabundance of information. So it's really important to calibrate the truth within you so you can discern what's right, what's wrong, what's working, what's real, what's not. So many times I mentioned the program. This is the program about energy reading and the mind mirror. It's all about perspective. I did it in 2021, and it's really central, and I keep dancing around the topics I started or introduced first during this program. So we will continue, and please excuse me, or let me say it this way, if I repeat myself, that means that's something really important for me. That's the topic really charged for me. And I'll be using these words charged quite a few times today. So I think it's something really worth paying attention to or repeating. And some of you who might have been at my 2-day ESP workshop a while ago, you may come across familiar things that were mentioned there and that actually inspired me to make an open talk about same subjects today. So I want to start with this slide and a few key theses or assumptions that are very important to keep in mind They are inspirational and they are foundational. You can call it also summary of higher order, the laws of higher order that I'm highly interested in, and I think they apply to absolutely everything, material, non-material, and many times I found evidence that they apply to the brainwaves as well as we see them with the mind mirror. So things to remember. It's all interconnected. There are wheels within wheels. Non-material vibration comes before physical manifestation. All you need for happiness can be found within you. You are more powerful than you think. We are never alone, and we have more support than we know. Take time to connect with yourself. Never lose or betray yourself. And it's all about perspective, so always search for the highest one to guide you. Keep tuning. Practice is the key. Many of you know it from my favorite meditations course, and those who attend in this ESP workshop, that's where I shared it as well. Previously, in the previous programs, I already spoke about attention. I spoke about flow and peak performance, and knowing mind mirror work covers many more topics, or people come with requests commonly addressing mindfulness and maybe exploring meditations. There are lots of meditators who are interested in seeing what's going on with me, with my energy field, with my brainwaves when I meditate. Often there are requests about creativity and how to enter creative flow. Personal transformation, it's a common thing, but I'm not sure how many people consciously are seeking this transformation. Usually we hit some block or we have some problem that we want to resolve. So that would be a good way to address it, with awakening, right? With raising your awareness to another level and looking at it from different angles, looking at it from higher perspective. And naturally, whatever we do, even if this was a request for peak performance and optimizing the brain function, however you want to look at it, eventually it will sharpen your senses, whether you want it or not, and make you more intuitive if you are open to it. And it will start pushing you on a path of spirituality if you haven't been there already. Though most of highly sensitive people, I should say, just by the nature of quite harsh earthly environment, are pushed to explore the subtle realms more and try to manage high sensitivity better and be more efficient, be more peaceful, be more functional in this earthly material realm. So we'll be focusing on these things, maybe with a special focus on key notions or key terms of mindfulness, spirituality, meditation, all those favorite subjects of ours. Let's start with this blind test. Some of you have seen it already. Here are 3 shapes. Ignoring what you know, if you already know the brain waves and how they look like with the mind mirror, just try to imagine and think which of these shapes, 1, 2, or 3, would you attribute to the state of disconnected from reality, blown away, or mindful with another spelling, or mindless. And you can just give a number, or just in chat if you like, or to yourself, say Q1, 1 or Q1, 2, or however you see it. And let's just test, because it's blind test, but it's a very good test. So that was the first question. Which one you think would represent the state of being disconnected or blown away? Question number 2. Which one of these 3 shapes you think represents resourcing, searching for connection, trying to ground with reality? I think I picked good wording for this, and obviously for me it would be very self-explanatory. So that was question 2. You can write to yourself Q2 and put your answer 1, 2, or 3. And then the third question would be, which one seems to you to represent being connected, balanced, whole, or mind full. And same story, you can just type key 3 or write down or memorize. And what would be the answer to this third question? 1, 2, 3. And I think it's pretty obvious for you maybe right now that the right answers were, when we are blown away, that's number 1. And this does look like a tornado, and it does represent our ordinary state of mind. I wouldn't go into much detail of brainwaves today, but just give you an idea. Yes, and if we draw the line somewhere in the middle and call it the line of consciousness, this dashed line, so whatever is above would be fast brainwaves. They're about our external orientation, our identity, what we know, what we are conscious of, aware of, and whatever sits below the line would represent slower frequencies. That means what happens internally, it's internal orientation, that's our subconscious, unconscious mind. And obviously the first one, yeah, we are blown away and we are hardly grounded. Grounding, it's something heavier, something towards the ground. And if you imagine looking at this tornado as a spring, imagine spring pushed to one end with all the energy focused here and tension here, the natural movement would be kind of start unfolding this tornado, bringing some movement in, opening up, and that's what we call awakened mind or the flow. And then you go down, you go basically push to the other spectrum, to the other extreme. And that's also a common thing, right? That's the pendulum. We were on one end, and then the spring would shoot to another end, which would be this state of grounding, resourcing, reconnecting. And yeah, that would be our sleep pattern or channeling pattern, where we go back and connect with the field to recharge and resource. And then naturally, after 2 extremes, the pendulum would move into its balance. So there are no longer bottlenecks, and the whatever is outside is balanced what's in with what is inside, and we are more aware, more open. And how to say, the best way to explain would be we are better organized. There is more harmony, and there are more resources available to us. We can go here, there, anywhere. So that would be the pattern of evolved mind or oneness or unity. And that's very balanced pattern compared to all the other ones. Okay, so the next one, just as a proof of this balance, I picked up a couple of images I showed you already previously when I was measuring brainwaves during meditations. So that was the response, and this response comes from different people. And when you watch lots of brainwaves, you understand that it's repetitive and there is no chance there. So the words actually, and I'll speak more about it today, the words, they are like a GPS frequency address for us to locate the meaning behind the words, and it happens through the frequency. So if we talk about self-healing, healing in Russian would mean restoring wholeness. Literally. And look, yes, it's the shape, the pattern approximating this circle. Or remember, so is something where we go below the line of consciousness. If we assume this green line in the middle is this middle line of consciousness, we go deeper. So we remember who we are. We are no longer in tornado blown away. We reconnect with something bigger than we already know. And another shape, I in I am. I found it beautiful as well, because clearly the I in I am is something bigger and is sitting somewhere below the line that we are normally aware of. And I love it because it was the I in I am that remains as the story goes. So it's good to remember we are just something bigger than our identity. And then place of health and wholeness and divinity, as I said many times, words that sound different but point into the same direction, they would be shown with similar patterns of oneness or unity. So this would be the typical dynamics that we would see, and similarly to the shapes I've just shown, from blown away, we open up, ensure the flow is possible, we reconnect, and then we balance. Sometimes we drift really far away, and that would be deep trance or out-of-body patterns or near out-of-body yoga nidra patterns. All I want to say that with awakened mind training, what do? So we are going into more healthy, balanced relationships between different levels of our consciousness, balancing external and internal frequencies, balancing heart, body, mind. And how it happens: beta, conscious mind, me is a separate unit of material world, what I know of, all my memories and their projections. Theta, our subconscious mind, me is a fractal of spirit, always in the present moment. And both of them, beta and theta, what I call two key frequencies that define the quality of our attention or the speed of our attention. They are moderated by a body bridge, by alpha frequency, which is literally sense maker, because this alpha frequencies represents our 5 senses that we pick with our body. You might have seen this before. You see the fragment of the Mind Mirror Alpha training session where I was going through prompts to activate each of our sensory channels, so each of our 5 senses, and finished with the animal or beingness meditation. Our nature and instincts clearly are very powerful, and say, for example, from this slide, if we pay attention at green waves, they are alpha waves. This is our senses, sensualization, and it came out maximum look smell, and actually smell is the only one that has the closest connection to our brain. It's the fastest communication to the brain. That's why, I suppose, not surprising, smell is the major kinds of instinct in the animal world, right? For survival, what's good for me, what's not. And animals can smell your fear, animals can smell whether food is good or bad for them. Then the whole body sensation and experiencing body movements, and then just beingness. So there are 3 powerful channels that we have to keep in mind. And I thought it would be nice, if we are talking mindfulness, to play a little bit, and because we often exaggerate, or we think a lot. Thoughts, they're something abstract and often disconnected from physical reality. But to bring ourselves back, it's good to remind ourselves that we have the bodies, but it's good to play with our thoughts. And what if the task would be to amplify or extend any experience, including your own thoughts, to all 5 senses. For example, you are hearing your own thought, listening to your own thoughts. What would be the music behind it? What would be the intonation? What would be the flavor of your thought? Would it be pleasant? Thinking of this exercise, I realized some thoughts, they literally stink, so I don't want them. And that made me clear my mind very quickly. And another thing was, when I touched with my eyes, vision is very powerful. For most of people, this is a dominant channel. Like 80% of incoming information comes with vision. So we are very busy scanning the external world and scanning we connect with the shape and the color. We estimate, we evaluate whether it's dangerous or not. It's almost basic survival, and it's orientation reflex. But at the same time, instead of just seeing with your eyes, imagine that these are not just your eyes, but you were touching this and smelling this. How would that feel? Energetically, we can extend our feelings, and basically, in many occasions, you will discover, I don't really like it. You want to look away and try to filter your perception into direction of something more pleasant that will work for you. You may acknowledge something is going wrong, but sticking to it and staying with it, literally you will want to wash your hands and wash your eyes and wash your mind. I give you this to not necessarily to do now, but keep playing with it. And instead of just having a dry thought or just having a look at something, believe me, on the energy level, what I call energy reading, all this information that our subconscious receives all the time, but our conscious mind is filtering it out, you'll be able to see and perceive much, much more. I think that's a great exercise and really the fastest way to mindfulness. So I'll go back to those slides that I absolutely love. You've seen them many times, but as I mentioned before, they are charged for me, they are important. So life is not something abstract. I see it as creative source energy flow at work, like electricity running in the cable. So we are channels and traducers, receivers and transmitters of this energy. And naturally, electricity will produce a magnetic field, and that can be called love. And love, it's something which binds, creates, attracts, and thus love and life are inseparable. We can clearly just call it life-love flow if we like. And the flow, I'll make an important addition today, it's not chaotic, right? This life, this world sustains itself because obviously there must be some clear patterns or pathways or rules or laws that this flow is following. And naturally, if we're going into higher states of unity and oneness, we are going into more balanced and better organized states. So this also points in the same direction. So the universe is quite organized. So if you want to be more efficient, more balanced, simply happy, that means we are moving in direction of from chaos, from chaotic flow to better organized flow. So all creation is subject to those rules. This is information, this carcass or skeleton along which the energy flows. In other words, I may call this skeleton or these major pathways or directions truth, laws or truth. And here we come to another very important point. To most of us, yes, we have plenty of our individual truths, but there's something central that even our individual truths will be pointing at, as there would be a seed of truth in every lie. You can't clearly create something which is not attached to the real world in any form. There should be at least one spot, one dot where it touches the reality, and then around that we can make a great cover up. So what I'm talking about here is truth is not something abstract, but can be seen as awareness of being able to see the direction of the energy flow of life from bigger perspective, or alignment with the higher order of things. I just call truth this high order. In other words, you may also call it integrity. When we are full of integrity, we are more aligned with this universal truth, getting closer to it. I'm not saying we necessarily can get this highest perspective all the time, but we are getting closer to it. So here is an important comment. The entry, how do we connect? And why is it important? So the more honest we are to ourselves and others, the less distortions we create in our perception. We are more connected to the flow of life. So that means more flow, more electricity, more power we have. And we have more clarity or ability to see the reality as is, which means our intuition sharpens, we sense better cause and effect. We may even predict or see things before they happen. And sense is a great word because it literally refers to the mental realm where we make sense of something. So it fits with the context. It holds the meaning for us, right? And then sense is also physical sense where our body can sense, right? So I can call it actually a charge indicating that you are connecting or belonging to this higher truth. Whatever makes sense to you means you're getting closer to your truth. And whenever you feel the resonance in your body, it even proves sensually, through sensual experience, that you're entering into this flow of life and love, or connecting with it more. Okay, and another interesting question, obviously when we lie, when we have to hide something, it takes lots of energy resources. It's not easy to do, to keep all the versions of scenarios to stick to the same lie and keep repeating it. So you have to hold two images in your mind, two stories at the same time, the real one and cover up one. Naturally, when are we more relaxed? When are we hiding something, or when are we accepting things as they are or as we are, and as is, basically? So I'm trying to say that if we want to be in the flow, and I guess everybody wants to be alive, we have to be more relaxed. Truth, naturally, sometimes it can be scary, but naturally the response is, when we come across the truth, it makes us more relaxed. It helps us to reconnect with the flow, and in many ways it's healing, it's liberating. And here I want to share with you a little hint that I picked up and learned during my family constellation studies. So as I already said, words are not just words, they are spoken codes, which provide our mind with GPS coordinates to locate the meaning and activate the frequency behind the word. And with Mind Mirror and the patterns that I showed many times, and just then you can see how this is true. Words are more than words, they are programs, right? They're programming us. We are all running these programs. So whatever we think will turn into our beliefs. The more we think it, then it will turn into our manifest and our behavior. And the more we repeat it, it turns into our habits, and eventually becomes our character. And in the end, a good doctor will say that's your chronic disease, but it's actually part of your character that led to this. It's part of who you are. It's being repeated many times. It's so typical or characteristic to yourself. That's why sometimes it's good to name things, just to help our minds reconnect with what it should be, right? Because often we just run by default whatever we inherited by default from the circumstances and people we were raised with. Spoken code about truth. I'll read it out loud, and I invite you to either speak it out loud while being muted or simply speak it in your mind. I acknowledge and embrace the connection between my essential self, my identity, the ability to see things as they are, and being true to myself, and I allow it to take place. So it's a tricky phrase. You can call it a code, you can call it a formula, but it helps your mind to recognize, to learn the knowledge which is necessary, acknowledge, and then embrace. So take it on the physical level, take it on the essential level, the connection between my essential self, my identity, the ability to see things as they are. We stop distorting things, we get this clarity and clear focus, and being true to myself. So we stick to our true nature, stick to our truth, and allow it to take place. The last phrase may sound unusual. The previous ones are common. It's almost let's unite beta with theta through alpha and make it clear and make it all one and clear. But allow it to take place. Here is another important message there, where any psychoanalysis, any therapy, any transformational or healing experience would be about taking whatever was suppressed or hidden, unconscious, and make it known, make it visible, make it conscious, become aware of it, assimilate it, acknowledge and embrace it. So clearly something that was not given a place, was not given attention, when you say I give it or I allow it to take place, it's a play on words as well, but you clearly bring it to your consciousness and help to make it real. Okay, I hope I explained it clearly. So the teacher's name is Leonid Talpis. I'm not sure how much information is available in English. There are some works by him online, and he calls it universal therapy, though the core of it would be based around family constellations techniques. Spirituality, I thought it's important to revisit this too. What's spirituality for you? I came across lots of misinterpretations, and I bet most of you here do not belong to these narrow-minded outlooks that I'm going to mention here. But again, there will be seed of truth in each of them, but it's more an official way of addressing spirituality. So someone would say, I'm spiritual, I can call myself spiritual because I have my regular spiritual practice. I meditate, or I pray, I go to the church, or I go to ashrams or retreats, or etc. But does it really address the core of spirituality? Or someone may say, I belong to a group of people with similar beliefs and values. We practice together, and I can call myself one of them. So quite similar to the previous one. Like mystic, meditator, or maybe I even hold some title or name within that system or group or tradition or organization. Someone might say, I studied world religions and philosophical belief traditions, and I can hold disputes and word battles and philosophical conversations and even give lectures on this subject, so thus I'm spiritual. And somebody else would say, I'm living a conscious life, I'm trying to live clean and be organic and eat healthy and focus on blissful experiences and look positive. And again, all of it is only partially true, right? So this would represent just small truths, at times almost becoming lies. So I want to revisit the notion of spirituality and say, let's look at the core of it, at the energy core. So it's being aware and connected to this energy network or web of life, to this flow of life. And I guess the key question to ask if we want to test if we are spiritual, like what makes us powerful? Where is our power? Where do we get it from? And I doubt, like any of you would say, it's generated by our brains. And what are we relying on in life? What can we fully trust and rely on? And that's really a big question. It's nothing easy, and it doesn't require immediate answer, but it's more take away, take home as a home task and ponder about it. Where is your power? Where is it coming from? What do you trust and rely on? And honestly, spirituality is very tricky because it's almost like knowledge. The more you know, the less you know. So the more you practice it, the more you understand, oh my God, how far I am from how many lies I carry, or all of these things. So the more you look into it, the more you realize how many weeds you have to weed in the gardens of our souls to be really pure and clean and proclaim oneself spiritual. By the way, I decided to borrow this from the program about flow, because to me, all of this falls into the same category. Being with the flow of life, being mindful, being spiritual, being creative, it's almost about the same thing. It's alignment with this high order of life love and circulating maximum energies with least distortion, where we become co-creators or manifestors on material realm. Just because of our human nature, we are biological beings and we are spiritual beings, so we combine both, and we are these mediators or channelers for the earthly realm, co-creators on the earthly realm. But it requires or implies that certain conditions are met. So what are they? And literally, it's continuation of the previous question about, am I mindful? Am I spiritual? Am I going in the right direction? How do I get into the flow? So it answers all of these questions. So do I know, can I sense the high order of creational life principles? Do I recognize my place in the interconnected hierarchy order? I wrote these questions from the first person perspective because this was my exploration, has been for many years, and in the last 3 years it was especially like a big focus on all of those questions. So do I recognize my place in the interconnected hierarchy order? First, we have to recognize we do have our place in this hierarchy. We are an important piece of puzzle in a bigger puzzle, part of a bigger mechanism, but it's important to know your place and to know your nature as well and not fight it, and know your interconnectedness, because first it allows you to take and bring on board the resources in, be more powerful, be more influential, and then at the same time it allows you to give. Powerful, influential implies that as well. Do I agree and comply with these principles or trends? And that's another tricky question, because acceptance, embracing it, living it, is different from just knowing about it. And on many levels, again, the more I look, the more I realize how I argue with many things. And the first thing we argue is usually our life scenario, saying, could the creator thought of maybe better scenario for me? Why do I have to go through all of this? It could have been lighter and nicer and easier. Why do I have to go through this? This author, this writer clearly is not very talented one. So clearly I came to the conclusion many times how I have this argument with the creator, trying to say, I know better. And then learning, no, I clearly cannot know better. I should know my place and accept and surrender. So do I acknowledge and accept fully my earthly and spiritual nature, talents, and making best, well-balanced use of the given resources for the best interest of all life? Again, diving into numerology and astrology, trying to understand my nature. I realized most of my life I was blind. I hardly knew my nature. I was fighting with it. There were reasons for that. I wouldn't go into detail of nuclear trauma or whatever, but we all have our stories or whatever shaped up this way. But the result is fighting against my nature never worked for me. It's better to cooperate with your nature, whatever it is. It's better to know and recognize it and fully embrace it. And we are shaped a certain way for a reason. It's whatever talents we got, strong parts, they well balance or outbalance our weaker parts. So if we know both, we can juggle it in a really well balanced way. And again, in the best interest of all life, is this just me wanting something for me and me, or do I see a bigger picture? Or am I prepared and mature enough to give as well? How well I cooperate or align? Do I know how to relate to myself and others, remaining flexible, ready to learn, adapt, transform as life requires? Because life is a flow, it's constantly changing. And the base ground for that, our kind of initial settings, default settings, should be leveled, balanced. Because if we are not in peace, at peace with ourselves, these distortions will ripple through all the relationships with the rest of the world. We can't clearly see ourselves, so how can we clearly see anything else? We are looking through our own eyes, through our own prisms, and they are blurry. So yeah, life basically requires this constant learning and adjusting and clearing, focusing the lenses to make sure we see what really takes place without distortion, without flattering ourselves or flattering somebody else, diminishing ourselves or blowing our egos and look bigger and trying to diminish everybody else. So it's a long journey. Am I able to feel gratitude, empathize, and forgive myself and others? So it's part of acceptance of our nature and part of acceptance of our place within the bigger picture. How often do I feel, experience, support, coincidences or luck? And I see it, luck and support and coincidences, literally being a result, just a logical, almost predictable result of being in the flow. So when we get there, when we cooperate with life, when we are aligned, when we surrender, when we know our place, it just rolls. And the amount of miracles or coincidences or synchronicities and luck, you can't predict it. It's unbelievable. It makes it difficult to believe. And then this same fact turned me into thinking, whoever writes this story of my life is actually a brilliant author. I could never think of it this way or put all these things together entangled or one stemming from the other in this particular way. So how often do I experience positive states? We can call it balanced brainwaves. Do I feel purpose and meaning in my life? So positive state would be a natural result when you have enough energy, because the more joyful, we talked about it before, positive states, they are charged states. They imply you have lots of energy. When you are depleted, it's hard to feel happy. It's two contradictory things. Check the chart of emotions and you'll find it. We might be depressed, but as you look at the chart of emotions, we start recollecting ourselves instead of being smashed and depressed when we start getting angry. It's actually a good emotion or frequency just to recollect yourself back and start building up your resources. Do I feel purpose and meaning in my life? That's also two big, maybe abstract words, but to me, they almost became essential. Whatever makes sense, wherever I feel this charge, you may call it deeper knowing. I may not have any rational explanation behind things, why I feel I should go there or why I think I should be doing this, but my body would basically keep me awake from excitement because I know this is the right thing to do for me. There is something there for me, as if you receive an email with attachment and you know there is something like it's something so interesting, so important for you there. So you open this email, you can't wait to unpack it. It's this zip file that you need to unpack and see what's in it, let's unpack it, let's unfold it and see what's hiding there for me. All these treasures, all these gifts and lessons to learn. So that's exactly how it was happening and is happening for me these days. And I thought it would be nice to share with you the spoken code about spirituality. It starts with the similar words, same words. I acknowledge and embrace the connection between my essential self, my identity, and something greater, and allow it to take place. Here, a good question would be to ask, how do we connect with something greater? There are many ways how we can connect, and I think I mentioned a few, but the basic one would be we can connect with something greater. What could it be? It could be my family system, it could be my ancestors, it could be bigger nature that I'm part of. So think, what's that something greater for you? To somebody, it can be a local church group. Nothing against that. It may take you to the same place. But it's something greater than your little identity of who you think you are, who you think you know, what you think you know about yourself. And it extends and makes you bigger through this belonging to something greater. And clarifying meditation. So a few very superficial statements, but again, I keep coming across them in real life from many people. So some would say, people look at this superficial side of things and say, meditation for me is part of my yoga class. I do it because it's trendy and it adds value to my self-presentation when I say that I meditate. I can claim that I'm mindful and spiritual. It's a way to improve my attention and give me superpowers, someone said. I meditate and then my mind will be clearer and work faster. Yes, there is seeds of truth in each of them, but still, it is about mantras or affirmations that make me feel good. So I'll sit there and drill my brain or repeat certain words, spoken codes, and clearly I just said it myself. They take us to a certain frequency. They help us to locate with what's hiding behind these words. Through words, we connect with the states. We connect with those frequencies. I see myself dressed in white and sitting like those Zen monks, feeling cool about myself. It's a ritual to give myself a break from others and stay alone with myself. It's a good excuse. I'll just sit there, looking smart, with my precious meditation cushion. That's how sometimes I'm seen by my family, though I'm not wearing white and I don't have precious meditation cushion. It's only when I sit in silence, because to others it's only silent meditation, or maybe I focus on my breath or focus on loving kindness, and I calm my mind from excessive thinking. Can't argue. Each of these phrases, they are true, or they have seeds of truth, but it's still superficial. And I'll go to my definition of it. It's a process of tuning to restore, reconnect with the life energy flow, with something greater, if you like, and shift the perspective to manifest and create. And the questions here to ask would be, how do you reconnect with the life energy flow? What are your doors to something greater that you know, that you can sense, that you trust, and you can rely fully on? So here you can see how all these key terms link together, because we talked about flow, spirituality, and mindfulness, and yeah, it all clicks together. But here I want to give my story where I had to explain that to me meditation, it can be considered a ritual, but it is and it is not, because it's not a blind ritual that I do in autopilot mode. It's something that comes from the need to connect with something bigger. And if there is no need and if there is no intention behind it, I simply don't understand the meaning of it, right? Why would I be doing it just blindly, sitting there repeating some words or focusing on something, not even knowing what I'm doing? It's like, where am I going? Where do I want to get? So clearly, I think it starts with the need. You can call it acknowledged motivation and clear intention of connect with something bigger. Obviously, it can be seen as a technical exercise, mechanical exercise of training the brain. Can't argue with that. But naturally, as I've shown, even if you do technical exercise of sharpening your brain and taking you into more balanced, organized state, eventually it will take you to the same place. It will take you into the state of oneness and unity and bring you closer to spirituality. As I said, claiming oneself spiritual, it's a big claim to make. And finally, the last two things. I mentioned attention many times, so this is our instrument. It's our tool, magic wand, a vector through which we channel, direct the flow of life energy, and we point at what we would like to create and amplify, because attention is energy. We direct it and we help things grow. We create them, amplify them, and that's where mindfulness comes hand in hand with how we manage our attention. Our most precious resource, we have it by the life of birth, channeling this life, source life energy through us. What do we do with it? So mindfulness would be watching where our life energy goes, recognizing the truth and doing our best to follow it with our attention. So I hope this mindfulness exercise in the very beginning would come handy later on. Just mind can trick, mind can detach, mind can fly away and dissociate. But as soon as you add to any mind product 5 senses and sensualize whatever goes through the mind, that will give us many hints, many clues. It's a great compass to bring you back where you're supposed to be, bring you back to the right path, bring you back to your truth. Okay, here we come to the core of it, the ultimate listening formula. I summarized here the knowledge of the brainwaves, or different levels of our consciousness, with the phrases or dispositions from systemic family constellations, which is a type of short-term psychotherapy combining lots of modalities in one. But the core of it, even if you don't know what it is, the core of it, it is very spiritual in its essence. And it teaches you to know your place, to be aware sensually of what's coming in, so have very acute senses and cooperate directly. They would call it the knowing field. I may call it cooperate directly with the flow of life. So let's see what is what. So in white were my initial words from how I summarized it for myself from Awakened Mind training. And in yellow would be almost extracts from citations of Bert Hellinger, the founder of Systemic Family Constellations. So how we relate with the world and know our place. So beta, mind calm and clear. So this is our thinking mind. No intention, that may be very confusing, I'll explain it. No fear, no expectation, no prejudice or preference, no thinking, just registry. Observing walkie-talkie in reception mode. Standing in the position of service, the youngest in the hierarchy, becoming an empty container for the field. So that's very interesting, because this exactly explains the main function of our thinking mind is to know its place, don't be blown away or taken over, how I was showing in these first shapes in the very beginning of presentation, but do not distort the picture by having big expectations and intention that is too hard or too pushy, that tries to push the reality in desired direction, saying, no, I know better how it should be. Preference, same story. We expect this or prefer this to this. No thinking, just registering. It's there to register, to observe. Observe and read the signs that life is providing to us. And really, I know it's a bit crazy outlook, but how do tarot cards readers say what they say? But it's all about them tuning and seeing what's going on and just reading the signs and using cards as not quite white screens, but using as screens to project the meaning, the true meaning, the knowing from their subconscious. And I mentioned tarot cards, but you can do I Ching readings, the 64 hexagrams that always show what's going on with you at this very moment in time. And you throw the coins, or you simply open the book and you get the reading, and then your subconscious will pick from it, will filter out from it whatever is relevant for you in your current situation. And the more you are aligned with life, with the flow, with your truth, the more interesting things you'll pick up. It's almost everything will start talking to you. You walk along the streets and the banners, big advertising banners on the street, will be giving you messages that you need to receive, or they fully resonate with how you feel in the moment. Or they even, like it happened to me recently, I was flying to Sydney And I had a chat to my friend in WhatsApp. She's in Israel. I'm here in Australia, so we're so far away from each other. But she gave me a phrase, and then I'm going to the bathroom, and here is this phrase on the poster in front of me. And I'm like, I can't believe, what a coincidence. Like, how is it possible? Just 2 minutes ago, that was the last phrase I received from her. And that's here looking at me from the poster in the bathroom. It's everywhere. Sometimes it's good to go a little bit crazy and allow yourself to look at everything around you as if they're trying to communicate to you. I think a big opening for me was when in Vedas they said that pregnant women, they are supported by the whole life, by the whole universe, because it's such an important function of procreation. And it's almost like being pregnant, you start feeling these birds are singing for me. I know it's very egocentric perspective, but sometimes if you allow yourself to think like that, birds singing may become healing for you. Your life will turn into magical life where everything is magic and everything is constantly interacting with you. It just most of the time we're ignoring these facts. So what else is important here to explain? Walkie-talkie reception mode, because if we are thinking that we know better, we no longer can channel, we no longer can receive. So clearly the mind should be calm and clear and in reception mode. Standing in the position of the service, when it's just me, clearly I can't see beyond my nose. When I sit there and say, okay, within this bigger perspective, bigger picture, bigger hierarchy, within this high order, I am probably one who needs to receive whatever I'm supposed to receive. And when you sit like that, in particular in family constellations, the story is about you and your interaction with the client or the person for whom you are constellating. And for everyday life, it may mean just listening to another person. If you genuinely want to help, you sit there in the position where I'm ready to receive your story. I'm ready to receive and sense and feel and acknowledge what's coming with your story behind words. And that way you see so much more. So that was about data. Empty container. I wouldn't develop on that because it's clear. Many meditations would say, yes, that's what we are doing. We are unloading the mind to become empty so we can receive, we can channel. And clearly when you let yourself drain your mind to become empty, you eventually become creative because you stop repeating the same thoughts, the same tracks again and again, and you allow yourself to rethink, re-choose, re-evaluate, and maybe do things in absolutely new way depending on the new situation, because every new moment is different. So you start noticing, instead of dragging our own past self, old self into every new moment, we reevaluating every new moment and saying, is the context still the same? Is it still the same time-space context? Or am I dragging something, some scenario, some behavior pattern that no longer apply and is absolutely irrelevant? And basically that's the essence of constellations, to discover and remove all distortions, remove the charges and return back to the present moment, leaving behind the behavior patterns that no longer work, or maybe they're just default settings inherited from our ancestors. So let's move to the next point. Alpha, anchored in the body, senses on. So body, as I mentioned, very important because it's always in here and now. Mind can run away, be lost in the past, still drag the situation from a few days ago when I called rude words by the bus driver or whatever. But your body is here now, and the senses can never lie. So when you hit the truth, you always, if you're open to receive, sense the resonance with the truth in this or that way. And I think I touched upon this in this ESP workshop that I mentioned in the beginning. And I did have a play with a group of mediums about that, where I thought calibrating truth through the body is a great exercise, because mind can lie, but the body will always give you the truth. Kinesiology is a good representation of that when you do muscle testing, and it does not lie. But even if you just turn all your sensory channels on maximum and start monitoring subtle changes that they deliver or what's going on with you in all your 5 sensory channels in response to this phrase or this figure in the field, because if family constellation, they work through representation. So we invite figures to represent the constructs from our psyche, how it sits, how it was recorded, that traumatic situation or relationship, and they'll show up all these distortions through the figures in the field, through other people, through representatives who can read the field. So wouldn't it be great to calibrate our truth well enough so that you read the news and you can clearly identify or discern how big is the seed of truth in all these lies? Or for big gamblers with the cryptocurrencies, you can say, wouldn't it be great if I read these forecasts of what's going on with these currency rates and I could clearly predict, because the major trend feels right, like this feels like true, this feels right, and I can sense it in my body. Okay, so volume set on maximum on all sensory channels, monitoring subtle changes. Who is monitoring the changes in the body? Clearly your thinking mind, instead of running around with expectations and delusions, illusions, thoughts, judgments, whatever that likes to run around with. It needs a bone. So instead of this bone, you want to be busy, we'll give you the task, please monitor subtle changes in the body. That's your main task. And by monitoring the subtle changes, we better read, is it true, is it not true? We read the signs from all the incoming information, we connect with it more. Okay, next one, next level, theta. In the mind mirror world, it's subconscious mind. So theta, empty center, open-hearted. We empty ourselves from what I just named, all these delusions, distortions, and we open up to whatever is coming. We find that point of connection with the universe. I often call it this alpha theta frequency, where we cross over this line of consciousness. So we are open-hearted, we are centered, we are leveled, right? Because if we are not leveled, we start distorting the picture. Interconnected, eternal soul perspective. So where we connect with the field, with life, we connect with eternity. We go beyond this very moment. Through now moment, we connect with eternal now. So that's very high, very big perspective, going beyond your survival, beyond your mortal identity, with knowing and trust. So here comes the very core of spirituality. So we know there is something greater and we trust it. And we are no way superior to reality. We're not trying to dominate and say, hey, creator, you did a bad job here, I know how to make it better. Obviously, there are reasons. There is cause and effect, why things are the way they are, even though we cannot see them through our eyes, with our limited minds, with limited lifespan. It may stretch beyond what we know, our knowledge, our awareness, beyond our even time-space context of our lives, these particular lives. So it's important to stretch our perception beyond that, at least on the level of mind, to accept that this might be real and I'm picking something which actually belongs to my ancestors, some destructive pattern which basically wasn't destructive. At some stage maybe it saved someone's life, but for me it doesn't work anymore. It keeps me away from life. So we are open to be vulnerable and making mistakes. So that's the hard part, where we expose the natural movement is, let me dig a big hole and hide there whenever we don't like something. But the truth is, the opposite movement is the right one. You step towards your fear, you don't hide from it. And that's the only way to transform and grow. Or you hide until you recollect enough resources to step out and face it. And allowing to make mistakes is also important, because just again, when you're reading the field, there might be mistakes. There still might be distortions. But the more you practice, the more you try, the more you learn to trust yourself, and probably the less mistakes you'll make. The more open you are, the less mistakes you make. And then ready to accept, welcome and accept what is coming, truth. Again, we often shield ourselves from the truth because it may go beyond what we know. Unknown is scary. Beyond our expectation, it's scary. Beyond our judgments is scary. So we still may hold some preferences. But truth might be scary for some. So here, courage is required, and holding on to something bigger is required, because sometimes it's just for you alone that may be too heavy to face or see or carry the truth like that. So that's where we all need each other as humanity, to share the burden and share the truth, and feel not just ourselves, but feel our ancestors, feel the spirit realm, and connect with more levels of reality than material ones, because there are resources there, there is support there as well. It's just by ignoring it, we deprive ourselves from interacting with it and using it. So Delta, compassion, humility, empathy, and I may still leave instinct here, because instinct is extremely powerful, and empathy, humility, compassion, I should say, these are just higher floors of the animal instinct, higher floors of consciousness. That's a good way to explain it. I picked it from astropsychology, where there could be different ways how you can channel certain energies through you. There could be low floors, the same quality or nature of energy, but there could be higher floors. So basic survival instinct is very strong. And then this tuning is part of this basic survival instinct, attunement, reading the signs of what's going on around with our senses. Nothing different for humans. It's just taken to another level, where we extend this radar, antenna, telescope to maximum. You can say Delta, I often say, to me it's almost like extended Alpha. Alpha is physical sense, Delta would be etheric body, where you extend your senses. So I can sense it with my, I have sense of touch, but I'm not touching it with my hand. I can see it, but I cannot physically see it with my eyes. I remote view. You understand what I mean. So we stretch this ability beyond just physical body limitations and connect. And part of it is ability to stretch and include others, but not losing yourself in it. So you clearly acknowledge both. And then you approach yourself and others with compassion and humility and empathy. And it's a very gentle touch, because we are working on a subtle level. So open to receive from the higher, infinite unknown. Again, only with courage we can do that. Maybe it wasn't as clear for those especially for whom family constellations are not known, but still it's a good way to reset our default settings from being blown away and I know better, to finding our place. Finding the place for our thinking mind, finding a place for our body, and acknowledging that it's very important. It's of great assistance here with all its 5 senses, connecting with a deeper level of our eternal self, with our heart, and open up there to connect with something bigger. Through that, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, make mistakes, and accept and surrender to what's coming. And having trust to what's coming, it's for our better good. And then Delta, compassion, humility, empathy, it's instinct converted to higher floors, or elevated to higher floors of human consciousness, where we basically sharpen even more our five senses and ability to attune and better understand, read ourselves, better understand others, and communicate directly with the field, with the unknown, with what's coming. So in essence, that was the ultimate listening formula. And in reality, to me, this turned into sort of meditation practice, because when I had to lead the constellations, I had to take it on, because there's no way I can predict the next movement, or if I'm not listening to whoever is on a hot chair and presenting the case and asking for help, if I cannot fully attune to the request, I cannot address the request, I cannot discern and decipher it properly, accurately, and then see in words. Mind stories can be repetitive and take you away. Behind the words, you'll see usually the pattern of what's actually happening, what's the true message, and what the logical movement or solution would be. And then the question is, how can I facilitate this movement or solution? Release of that block. Can I connect with more resources and be a resource myself? And all of this. So it's after meditation, we say there is a glow and after effect, where this state of mind that you end up with after the meditation practice stays with you for a while, and then it wears off in the bustle and hustle of everyday life. Practicing the systemic family constellation was a great practice for me, for attention training, for my five senses. It's absolutely next level of quality of attention, how much detail I can pick, how accurate actually we can pick. It's just most of the time we are ignoring all the signs, we're not trusting, and we are fearful or too dominant. But when you take the right place, it falls together. And the interesting fact is that when the case is being reviewed, and usually in a group, constellation, they work with representation. So for example, a child comes, I have problems with my mother, and then there would be, okay, here is representative for you, here is representative for your mother. So let's invite the people and ask them what they feel. And as people enter the field, these representatives, they are strangers. They may not know, and usually they do not know the child, they do not know the mother, they know nothing. But they pick from the field the core interaction, what's happening on the energy level, what's the dynamics, why things are the way they are, and whatever happens in the field requires this ultimate listening or ultimate attention. And when you train yourself to read all the little signs, all the changes, where is this representative looking, what is he, she feeling, what's going on, you take it out from constellation practice into life, and that becomes abnormally interesting. So I'll stop the presentation here. I summarized principles of high order, the key ones, but I briefly mentioned them. I'll share with you the presentation and you can do a little study at home. But for now, I want to stop sharing the slides and check the time first of all. So what's the time? It was 1 hour and 24 minutes. And share a few stories, very exciting stories, maybe the most interesting ones from the last 3 years. Consciousness Evolution, that was the title. I guess I explained the part where we are dialoguing with life, but I want to explain about consciousness evolution and what's happening, at least what's happening for me, and then you can come back and say if you have anything similar. So I clearly can say that when I was awakening back then, I started looking into, channelings and this and that. And I was reading channelings and realizing that's exactly how I feel. I don't need to read this channeling because that's exactly how I feel now. But back then I had no trust in it. These days I learned to trust that what's happening to me does make sense and it might be true. So what I see is happening with the consciousness of today, it's accelerating at abnormal speed. It feels gamma brainwaves showing up more and more, so we can prove it as well. It feels like it's a rocket ship flying into space, and it's detaching the bases. You know how they go through a certain level and they need to detach the base, whatever doesn't serve anymore. And it feels like we have to discharge this load that we were carrying through the years, sometimes through many generations, many incarnations, and we have to drop it. How to say it? The heavy frequency of the old world doesn't work anymore. I can see that the whole world is splitting into polarities of those who still hold on to the old world and those who are stretching and moving very fast into the future with very flexible, very creative, very unusual consciousness, but with great possibilities. It's scary and challenging, but it holds in itself lots of opportunities as well. So let me give you an example from numerology to explain myself maybe. So we were given a task to analyze dates. So 1-9, just think of the years or century. 1900s, they start with 1 and 9. So 1 stands for somebody's will, power, and authority. And 9 stands for knowledge or information. So basically, we would say those who were born or lived in 1900s, they were shaped around, I want to rule the world and myself through force, through authority, through having access to knowledge that others maybe don't have access to. And before computers and internet, how scarce or how easy it was to hide or rewrite knowledge and history and whatever was available to us, all the information. So basically 1-9 is going into the past. So the key battle in the previous century was about power. And it was through authority and through force, through violence, through asserting myself on the top. And 2000 is another story. 20 stands for, 2 literally stands for energy. So 2 is energy, interaction, communication, exchange, cooperation. Whoever has more energy, whoever has more resources, energy in the first place, that one is winning basically, right? That one is going with the flow. So it's about listening to each other, it's about communicating, it's about exchanging, and it's about managing one's energy or managing one's attention. And 20 stands for, it's like false or true. Either you believe in it and you fully go with it and embrace it, or you fake it and then you fail and lose. It's this validation number, let's put it this way. 0 is validation number. I thought it was very interesting to look at just these dates, the centuries that we are moving. And literally, if you look at what's going on, before it was more about knowledge and information and building up on that. Right now, you can't build on that. There is overabundance of information. You can find anything you want. But what you do with it, how you deal with it, it's about interaction. It's about managing energy resource. And energy would be the major reason for wars on every level. On a human level, everybody is fighting for our attention, right? More than even money or anything. It's the consequence. Where attention goes, eventually you'll pay money there as well. It will follow. So it's just manifestation of the energy. So I thought that's very interesting. And let me say a couple of words more that, like, before it took you years and years, they would say you would need 7 reincarnations to drop off your old patterns and learn your lessons. And if you lied or didn't follow your truth, and believe me or not, again, another coincidence, delivering another webinar to you and saying a few things like about physical body, and then realizing the next day after I said it, I had the courage to share it with you because I believe this is true. But if I'm not fully embracing or living it myself, I'll be punished the next day. It won't take 7 incarnations. I'll have to learn this lesson immediately because I claimed this is true and I know it. So that's how I feel it. They say, be careful taking teaching position or sharing anything like this because there's a price to pay. So I'm paying full price for everything I say, still have the courage, I'm ready to take the learning, and clearly can say it doesn't take 7 incarnations. It happens much faster between the moment of doing or thinking and manifestation of it or getting your price to pay for it. The buffer is getting smaller and like shorter. The experience of each day, I don't know if you experience the time in the same way I do. It feels like days are like months, weeks are like years. Say, I speak with my mom each week and like weeks pass by like it was yesterday. I don't understand. On one hand, I had many experiences. The intensity is so high, but at the same time, the time frame is just 7 days. And I can't connect, so it just doesn't match together anymore. And sometimes I say, oh, this was yesterday. It feels like it was ages ago. So we are moving through time with much faster space, it feels like it, though we still have the same clock. And as I mentioned, the split of consciousness between the old ones and new ones, it's getting so radical, and truly the time is very turbulent. So if in the past the time was stable, linear, predictable, as if I'm powered by electricity and the electricity is in my cable is stable and steady. To me personally, the last 2-3 years, especially this very last year, was very unstable with very high turbulence. I may experience like moments of, I don't know, unexplained anxiety or grief or depression without any rational reason for that. And I had to look into it with obviously all the tools I know, all the instruments I have to clear it out for myself. What is going on here? Because there's no possible reason why I should feel like that. And it's harder to deal with it because it feels like it's a bigger collective wave, bigger collective field experiencing all of this that's shaking me. And on individual levels, like I would assign it, oh, it's just my recent argument with the husband or something else. My mom would assign it, oh, it's my old age and that's why I feel like that. Somebody else would say it's because I have this stress at work. We all find our own explanations, but the trend or the frequency or the state we're experiencing is very often the same. And it's hard time when you feel full charge. I feel inspired by something. I feel, yes, this makes sense. I'm doing this. And I wake up this next morning and there was a glitch in my power cable and I feel zero charge. I no longer can relate to this and feel like, what happened? I don't understand. I'm discharged and it happened overnight. It happened like flick of a second and it's different. And I can no longer stick to long-term plans. I can no longer make long-term plans. And I had to do a little therapy or exercise for myself that I want to share with you. When I heard one of my teachers saying that, yes, the old systems are rotting away, basically decaying, and some of it you can evidence with your eyes, some of it you can't see. But what happens, you wake up in the morning and there are certain parts of reality that dropped off overnight that you can't relate and connect with anymore. So that's exactly my story. So I wake up and I can't connect, or I experience that glitches in the power, in the electricity, where I no longer hear, my rails switched somewhere else and I jumped on some other line of reality, and it's quite chaotic. It's quite unpredictable. And good therapy was, you can borrow it, and it's part of the new consciousness as well, where if you see someone or attune to someone who found the way out, who knows the door, or who walked this path, through that person, you can walk that path too. And all you need, it's just attention high enough, this attunement good enough to be able to recognize it and follow. So I told about it many times because I thought that was all these guru initiations, what they were about. They know the path to the God they were claiming, that's the same. But I wasn't thinking about it on everyday level. Basic example, I was trying to learn AI to create images mid-journey. I was trying to install Discord and all other applications, and somewhere I got stalled, just I had a block and I didn't know what am I doing wrong. It just takes too much time to listen to all these millions of instructions, and then there shows up 1 2-hour workshop by one of the teachers I know, and suddenly out of the blue, besides other things she does, she decided to share how to use Midjourney. And I thought, yeah, I'm doing it. I'll just buy this 2-hour webinar and watch it. And believe me or not, after half an hour of the webinar, I could do anything she was talking about. I didn't even finish listening to it because somehow through her, I got this pass. I got this permission. I received this permission, or through her, I saw it is possible. And I don't know, having her confidence, knowledge, or this pass or door or passage, in Russian language we use the word passage. So I just saw this passage through her and made it possible. And then I learned that I can literally do it with anything else or anyone else. You just listen, tune, and through that person you can make it possible. So my little therapy when I was arguing with myself, feeling quite frustrated, upset that I can't stick to long-term plans. So I decided, okay, apparently there is part of me that is so used, and it's habitual to this part, to live in a stable, predictable world where I can make plans, when I can keep my word, stick to my word, keep the promises, but it feels like this world doesn't allow for that anymore. It's becoming impossible. Like the old rules, the old ways, if I have to repeat all the same again and again, how I used to be doing and living, I'm bored, I'm done, I'm depressed, I can't do it anymore. It's the time to switch to another level, just jump to another level. And basically I have to say, okay, thank you. I recognize that you must be suffering and it's unpredictable, insecure, it's strange, you can't hold on, you don't know what you can rely on in these times, but sorry, you have to go and give way to new parts that want to live new life, be creative, be fast and express creatively in the moment. And if the old rules do not apply, I give myself permission to live without rules. I just don't know what the rules are. Yes, there are these rules or laws of higher order that I'm not doing harm, and we are all interconnected, and all of this I'm still applying or complying with those rules, but on other levels I simply don't know how. And most of the time I don't even know what and where, because it's so unpredictable and I don't have the maps for the reality I'm moving into. And I just said, okay, I give myself permission to live without rules. And the second thing, I keep myself open to whatever guidance will come from life, from spirit, from wherever, about what and then about how. I'll keep my eyes and ears and all my senses wide open to receive the answers. And the summary of it, the summary phrase for me was, I feel that to survive in this world right now, you have to go crazy to stay sane, because I'm breaking all the rules, what I was supposed to do, how it was supposed to be, and many will see me as going completely crazy. But at the same time, it is the only way for me to preserve my sanity. So I gave voice to both parts within me, and I married them and found this ground inside where I stopped arguing and I stopped asking myself for impossible, and I stopped waking up in the mornings trying to push myself into the old pattern, old clothes, size S, where I can no longer possibly fit, and it's simply impossible to move and live that way anymore. So that was my story. There will be many more coincidences and synchronicities. And if you still believe that anything is happening by chance, you are deeply mistaken, because give you another cool example from numerology. We were analyzing dates of important events in our lifetime. And I'm very bad with dates. So I thought the only thing I could do was looking into maybe diplomas that I received. I have many. And what would it be? It's just diploma or certificate, even like when I finished like certification as the mind mirror practitioner. Let me put these dates and analyze the codes behind these dates. And I thought, no, it's random, it's nonsense. It can't be true, because these papers are filled out, documents are filled out on random dates. But nevertheless, I found an interesting trend. So I have a code behind my birth date. And from that code, I can see what my life purpose is. And then I opened my diplomas in psychology, and all of it, believe me or not, teacher of psychology, that's one story, transpersonal psychology, another story, awakened mind training, the third story. And all of these papers, they are dated. The codes behind these dates has the same life purpose as mine. So these dates are talking to each other as if signaling me, Oxana, you are on the right path, you are doing the right thing. And yes, I may look at it through numerology like this, or I may just deeply ask myself, am I right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I moving closer to fulfilling my life purpose? And my honest response would be yes. Deep inside, I have this knowing, but it was good to see this verification or proof that it's true. Yeah, it fits. It does work. And continuing my research, I can say that every day we have a code, and on certain days, I'm not even looking on these charts or doing any calculations, but on some days I feel so much resonance, as if my channel is cleared or there are amplifiers around me. And it's like I'm buzzing, I'm meeting the right people, I'm having meaningful conversations, things clean and happen. And these are exactly these days of high resonance with my life purpose. It's mind-blowing. And how one event is talking to another event. Say, when I married my first husband, and you would say marriage date, yes, we choose it, but I didn't look into any codes or anything back then. But our marriage date is connected to my date of arrival to Australia, my migration. And I migrated because of him. So it was his initiative. So I would have never done it probably by myself. And I can see these two events talking to each other. So if you still believe there is some coincidence, no, it's not. You keep looking at the numbers, keep looking at my resources, my birth date, and I'm looking at my biggest drive, biggest motivation. You wake up at night, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's about learning and information sharing. That's me. That's my essence. Anytime, even if I'm exhausted, I'm ready to do that. And then I'm looking into astrological chart, believe me or not, same story. So you can't miss it. However, it looks like on the surface, there are codes behind, they're very well programmed. Same story, you look back into your ancestry, there will be the talents that go with your family. We all have different dates of birth, but the codes behind dates would talk to each other, and you would see these are the talents that I'm carrying from my mom's line, she is carrying from her mom's line, and this kind of channel is obvious and it's continuous, and you can trace it and you can see it, how this speaks to this or this relates to that. Anyway, I'm going to stop here and I'm opening up to all your questions. I see hand up. Anything you would like to ask from the first part or to share, or what resonated with you, you're very welcome. Unmute and speak up. So I can see Amil raised the hand. Please unmute and...
Oxana, thank you so much for the beautiful presentation and your open-hearted sharing about your evolution experience and the things that have opened up for you along the way, the realization. So thank you so much for that. I had a question for you related to the mind mirror. have you personally or with any of your students noticed any correlation between quantitative or qualitative mind mirror readings and these experiences of enhanced synchronicity?
I never really did any measurements because I can only relate maybe subjectively, because it would be me hooking up myself to explore it. But like with clients, what you'll see, how to say, as we move to feel good or better feel states, they are better organized and they are more balanced. So eventually we'll move to the states of unity and oneness. And there is not really much to say there except repeating that I had a case when I hooked up a guy, and so he immediately went to Evolve's mind pattern. And I was, okay, and then imagine the life you'd like to have and be, and it's all the same story. So he says, I am living the life I want to have. So it all fits. His subjective experience fits with this pattern. So there is not much for me to do the training about, right? And then another would be like, mediums are great at this because as you hook them up, whoever developed or naturally awakened to mediumship without particular training, they just realized they can read like that. In particular, it's related to the psychic mediumship. They're like psychic readers, not necessarily just spirit world, just psychic readers. They read very well. So this evolved mind, this oneness, unity pattern and state are very common to them. So whatever they live in, it's like even with eyes open, which is phenomenal. It's like just hooked up the person, you look at it and it's the same story. But then at the same time, I can say it doesn't give you all the answers. Don't attach everything just to the pattern, because it won't reflect your inner maturity. You may go into a high state, but the way you look at the world, it's Ken Wilber. I talked about it at one of our meditation club meetings where I explained there is a process of waking up and there's a process of growing up. So waking up, yes, you go through this, you add all the lenses, you optimize your states, but how you look at the world through these states will depend on your maturity level of where you stand in growing up, how you update and release your outdated beliefs and go to the next level, go to the next level, go to the ultimate, like, integral level. And that wouldn't be reflected in brainwaves. So you may see somebody very gentle and nice and beautiful, but from psychology point of view, you will say, this person needs to work on his shadow a lot and grow up. And there is a side of it that's not fully reflected. So awakening is part of the story, and it's state related, but state doesn't mean the prism, the filters that you're looking through at reality. They also include your maps of the world that needs to be updated regularly, and especially now, because the whole world is just like, those who go in direction of, yes, we recognize the higher order and we want to unite, we see interconnectedness. If I damage myself, I damage everyone. If I damage others, I damage myself in the end, because we are inseparable, we all one. And you see it, or you completely ignore it and you just take off. No, it's me, my authority, my power, and we go that way. And it's very hard for these two worlds to meet right now, because I think this world is going to die off, if not drag us with it. So it's just like we're going in these directions. I'm not sure if I answered your question. And thank you for kind words.
Thank you very much. Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Any sharing? Comments? Questions? Is it the same for you? When, like I say, that Yeah, life is different. Okay, let me then use maybe 5 more minutes to tell you another story, because I think it's a good one. We are talking about spirituality, and it's, in essence, it's connecting with something greater. And something greater, it is this human to human connection always, right? In our human world, you can't be happy and healthy and like fully isolated, being materialized and actualized on earth. We are part of the same bigger organism of humanity, right? So I was flying to Sydney not long ago, a couple of weeks ago. It was bad weather, terrible turbulence, because we were landing or going down through the rain clouds, and there were these holes. It was so scary. I never felt airplane falling, literally. It was very scary. And after my big trip to Russia last year, where the airplane couldn't land a few times, and I went, it was night flight, poor night's sleep, my battery completely down. So I went into panic mode back then, and I started being afraid of flying. I used to enjoy flying. Suddenly I'm being afraid of flying. So now this terrible turbulence, the whole airplane screams when the airplane is falling. And then it starts shaking this way, strong winds. So I'm like holding to my seat, feeling very pale. And I was on my own. There was spare seat here and some men sitting next to the window. It was this emergency exit row. And I'm like, started breathing, trying to self-regulate. Okay, I'm trying physiologically to balance and calm myself down. And I saw the face of that man when he saw me breathing. My immediate reaction was, may I hold your hand? And I just grabbed his hand and clenched as soon as I got the permission. And I could feel that he was absolutely calm. Obviously, he must be flying more often than me. And I immediately started cooling down to, how to say, 2 tubes of water, started connecting, communicating, and just calm down. I said, it's all fine. Just hold on as long as you need to calm down. And I just realized that this human presence is, for me personally, it's extremely important. It brought me back. And then that's how my trip to this intensive started. Out of 5 days, I attended only 2 days. Next morning, I'm coming to my first class. And the first class starts with the phrase of the teacher, she's family constellations teacher, saying, I'm coming from Colombia, and human touch is an important part of our culture. So whenever I do work as a Gestalt therapist, as facilitator, I always touch people. And before I do it, of course, I have to ask them, can I touch you? But I think that, she said, I think that human touch is very important because it immediately signals the brain that you are not alone. It immediately takes you out of your mental drama or illusion where you're drifting away in these horror worlds. It brings you back into the body, into now, and it gives you a resource with the help of another person. The traumatic experience, trauma happens when you are isolated, when there is no resource, when there is nobody to connect with. And I'm listening to her and thinking, I can't believe it. I don't have to go too far to relate to her story because it just happened to me yesterday, just when I was flying in the late night flight, when I had to connect to another person just to get over it. And I think it's a good example of, maybe you will notice, or I notice it many times, however it starts, it's like a fractal that will keep unfolding throughout what will follow. And so this very flight to me was the beginning of what was unfolding later during these 2 days of constellation event. It's like very often, I don't know, the first person I met when I had my exams to the university with a girl who became my best friend after. Or like the boy I paid attention to became my first ever boyfriend, first ever love. And little things, if we are attentive to them, they are like these fractals or signs where it is heading, how it's going to unfold. And to me, it proved itself so many times. And so I'm still fascinated where next it is going to take me. Now, years ago, it took me to do mind mirror trainings with mediums, and they said, Oxana, you're like us. I'm like, no, I'm not like you. Then I'm going to this reading the field training, let's call it this way, and realizing, oh, actually, I can read the field and I'm quite accurate, and it's just my innate ability to do it, and I can't cancel it. It just happens all the time. And I have just to become aware of it and appreciate it rather than ignore and devalue and make use of it. And years later, I had first maybe solid goosebumps during medium sessions, practical experimental sessions. And now I feel goosebumps basically every single time I started feeling, sensing spirit guides behind and saying yes or no. And I have almost a dialogue, a conversation. And when I hit the truth, I feel full on goosebumps, as if somebody's just waving, gliding. I don't know what they're doing there, stroking, but it's something that you cannot miss and you cannot ignore. So it's a very exciting journey in connecting more and sorting it out more, how I can connect and speak with life, interact with life on another level, recognize the lessons I'm learning, why this is happening, what's the key message there for me, and what's the next thing that is charged for me. This charge, interest, it's not an abstract thing, it's this charge that I feel, this is knowing, this is the right thing for me to do, and you go in that direction. Or this is the right thing for me to do, and you go. Sometimes it just disappears right now, and then it comes back, or not. Or then some idea comes that you've never seen that before, and you're like, isn't it obvious? Why couldn't I see it before? It's like your awareness raised to another level where you walk around the house like, what's this old cup doing here? It just cracked, it needs to go in the bin. Why I haven't noticed it? And it's just about old cup, but it's also about all other things that you never noticed. Why have I always betrayed myself? Why have I done this to myself? No. And then you move to the next stage and next step, and that's how you go. So it's 8 o'clock. Thank you so much, everybody, for all your attention, your patience, these 2 hours, making this time, making this space. And hopefully let's continue. I'll continue with more webinars, and my idea was it would be lovely to have an experimental session where we could work on the quality of your attention and mindfulness, because every little constellation is like a powerful meditation practice to me, with open eyes, where you simply have to observe what's going on in the field, what's going on with other people, what's going in between them, what's going in above them, around from the highest possible perspective. It's a great thing for mindfulness, as I mentioned, and it's a great thing to learn your place and getting closer to spirit and learning to surrender and learning to listen more than dictate your own will. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day wherever you are. Thank you for all your thank yous. I can read lots of nice words, appreciation for your language. I did my best. Thank you. Let's stay in touch. You have my email. Okay, bye everyone.